Good evening and welcome to Antioch West Live for the month of August. We are so happy you have taken time to join us this evening, or maybe you didn't get a chance to watch us live, but you're getting a chance to come back later and to watch us. We're so glad that you've taken time to watch this broadcast, and I pray that you are blessed, you are inspired, you are challenged, and through the power of God that He helps you to change. That's what it's all about. We don't want just this to be a moment of entertainment. We don't want this to be something that is just you endure. But in this journey over the next 45 minutes or so tonight, I pray that you are challenged, that you are changed, and the power of God is able to touch your life. We are having such an amazing time here on Antioch West Live the last couple of months. June and July were absolutely amazing. I was a part of it. And even sitting here, a part of it, was amazed at the stories and the things that our wonderful guest had the opportunity to share. And I just want to say a thank you again to those wonderful people that spent 2 months with us on Antioch West Live. And if you have not watched that, you owe it to yourself to go back and to watch Antioch West Live for the month of June and July. I guarantee you, something in one of those broadcasts would touch your heart, would help you get one step closer to Jesus Christ. Praise God. Tonight we are excited. We have another great show coming to you tonight. So glad you're here. Tonight is a very special opportunity. We're going to be talking to a 3-time cancer survivor as they tell their story of their journey and how God helped them through that. And it's even more special to me tonight because not only are we going to interview a 3-time cancer survivor, but someone that's very near and dear to my heart because it's my mother. And so tonight we're so happy that she's going to be joining us, and we're going to share her story. And in sharing her story, that God would talk to you wherever you are in your own personal journey. So let's get into it tonight, and let's bring on my mother, Alice Wright, and let's talk about her story, and let's see what God will do tonight.
I'm so glad you decided to take the plunge! This is a life changer!
It certainly feels death-defying!
Speaking of death and defying, you know what would happen if something tragic happened today?
What?
Like if the shoe didn't deploy!
What are you talking about?
A malfunction, Joe! Like, let's say I pass out before the shoe doesn't deploy! I knew what would happen to me when I hit the dirt! What about you?
The Earth is coming!
The ground's coming for all of us, Joe!
We're hurling from heaven to earth!
That's exactly what Jesus did, Joe!
When do you deploy the chute?
When you decide that life after death is a viable conversation!
Ah!
Hallelujah! Hallelujah, Joe! Joe? Oh, you're praying. Okay. Awesome! Woo!
Welcome back. It's great to have you again tonight. And we are sitting here with our very special guest tonight, Alice Wright, and a very special guest to me because this happens to be my mother. But she has a phenomenal story to tell about God's grace and how God can help you. Whatever you're going through tonight, God can help you through your story as we all sort of walk this journey of life together. So thank you. Can I call you Alice? Okay, I'll call you Alice. It's kind of weird to call your mother by her first name, but so you're a 3-time cancer survivor. You've been through quite a journey over the last number of years, and I know it hasn't been easy, and I have been able in your situation to watch very closely and see that there was a lot of ups and downs and a lot of good days and bad days. So let's go back, if we can, the very first time you faced this journey, and I guarantee you that very first time you got the news, you wouldn't imagine that you would have to do it 2 more times after that. But let's go back the very first time. Tell a little bit about that situation. How long ago was that now? First time?
Oh, that's been probably about maybe 25 years.
25 years.
Yes, that I went in for a mammogram and was told the news that I possibly had a lump and I had to immediately have surgery. And I said to the doctor, I can't have surgery right now. We are fixing to go to a conference in England. My husband's a minister. We're going there and I can't have the surgery. Have to have it later. He said, you really need it now. And I said, well, I'm going to wait till I get back. When we went over there at the conference, there was a minister that was preaching, and he asked everyone to line up. He wanted to pray for everybody in there. I did not know him, and I don't think he knew me. But when he laid his hands on me to pray for me, he said, I pray for every cancer cell in this body.
And he didn't even know what he was
praying. He had
praying.
no idea. When I came home, they did a minor check on it, nothing major, and there was nothing there.
Gone.
All gone the first time. All gone.
So you're thinking, boy, that was good. We're past that, and we'll just keep on sailing life, not to know that that was just sort of the opening act to this
Correct.
journey. So you had that. That was about 25 years ago. And actually, to that note, I don't know if you've seen that man since then.
No, not to my knowledge. No, not to my knowledge.
That's amazing to me how God sees our situations and can bring people in our path we don't even know and may never see again, but at that moment and that time that God brings together. It's amazing, even tonight. Maybe tonight is one of those moments for you where God has aligned all of this so that you could watch this broadcast tonight because God wants to do something miraculous in your life as well. So you had that happen the first time, and then what was the distance between the first and second one?
I believe it was about 5 years. I can't remember exactly, but it was about 5 years. And I went in for another mammogram, and they discovered another area that they were very concerned about. And the doctor called us in, and he said, we are very concerned about this, and we are saying this time that you need to have a mastectomy.
Let me ask you this. What was it like emotionally for you hearing the news the first time, and then what was it like hearing again the second time? What was the difference in emotion? Obviously, the first time you may not even, maybe it didn't register, but the second time, what was that like?
I agree with that. The first time, it just didn't affect me as much, and because I got my healing so instantly and so miraculous, I just kind of walked through that one without thinking. When I went back in the second time and they told me I had it again, that was quite shocking to me. Human being speaking, human side of me speaking, disappointing. I thought it was over with. God had healed me, never come back. But he says it is back.
Was there a moment in that second one? Because obviously the first one was so quick, so rapid. Was there a moment in that second one where there was some fear that started to creep in? Or
certainly.
Yeah.
Certainly. Yeah. And if I would have opened the door, the fear would have stayed there.
Yeah, see, there you go with that. That's a huge statement. If you would have chosen, because you had the fear knocking at your door,
right?
But you had the choice: do I open the door or keep it shut?
I refused to open the door.
I want someone to hear that tonight, because that's a huge deal for all of us. Fear knocks at all of our doors,
right?
But you have a choice tonight whether or not you open that door or not. And I know for some it's easier than others. And I'm not saying tonight if you've already opened that door to fear, there's something wrong with you. But I think we have to understand that you don't have to give in to the fear that's knocking at your door. So you got that second diagnosis, and so the doctor said this time we need to do this. Well, what happened after that?
My husband and I decided that we were going to pray about it. I just did not feel real good about his diagnosis, and I felt like that I did not want to do that. And so we went in and talked to him, and he said, well, it's your choice, but we are really encouraging you to have this done. But if you choose not to, then you're going to have to sign a form. And we said, well, we just feel like we're going to sign the form. We're not going to go this far this time. So when I had the surgery, and the doctor came out. He said they were able to get it all. He did recommend that I go through radiation at that time. We prayed about that. I did go through the radiation. I will also say during that time, it wasn't just fear knocking at my door, but there were people knocking at my door that were trying to push the fear on me.
Oh, that's a huge, I want to get to that later, because that's a huge, huge deal, is who we surround ourselves through when we go through these journeys, because they can either make or break us, and that's a huge deal. And I want to circle back around to that a little later. Let's ask because I know it's a delicate balance. If we're believers in God, we walk by faith, not by sight. But we also are not naive to not believe that doctors know what they're talking about.
Correct.
How do you balance that deal between faith and obviously staring at what the doctor says? Because, I don't believe you're saying this, and I'm certainly not saying we just need to the doctor says you're about to die in 2 weeks. Oh, no, I'm not. God's going to heal me. I understand we all need to have faith. How do you balance between listening to the advice of the doctor? Because I'm sure when we get to the third instance of cancer, it went a completely different route the third time. But how do we balance that between hearing what the doctor says, but then also not allowing the doctor to determine our faith? How do you do that?
I agree that sometimes that's difficult to do, with the doctor telling you that your life is determined by what you do. But that's when you exhibit how much trust you have in God, that you can take it to Him and He's going to guide you through the journey and kind of lead you and tell you what to do.
So basically what you're saying is, if you don't have a personal relationship with Jesus, you can't do that.
No, you can't do it. You can't do it on your own. You have to trust Him to let you know what's doing. And a lot of times, and when you're trusting Him and He's guiding you, people criticize you because they say to you, oh, so you're not trusting God. Yes, I am trusting God. He's leading me and guiding me along this journey, and I'm listening to Him. I had many people say to me when I made decisions that looked like I was going against God, say to me, oh, well, why doesn't God just heal you? I don't know why He did not choose just to heal me instantly. He did the first time, not the second time I walked a different journey. But you have to learn to trust Him. You
said something extremely powerful there. You trusted God that He would, when you didn't listen to the advice of the doctors, but you were still trusting God even when you did what the doctors told you to do. I think that's a huge deal, because we look at it two different ways. And I think what you're saying is, even people, when they saw you, you're standing up there saying, I'm not going to do this. The doctor said this, but God's going to heal me. Oh, you're trusting God, but, oh, you know what? I'm going to go ahead with the treatment. Well, you're not trusting God. You don't stop trusting God, and for whatever reason, sometimes God does lead you, and we'll find out here in a minute when we talk about the third story. He does sometimes lead you down that path of treatment, but it's something you have to have. And obviously, I know this, you being my mother, your relationship with God is extremely strong, and you didn't just decide in this moment, oh, I better find Jesus. You had already knew and had that, and sort of had some steps on the way where He prepared you. Even little stuff. And if we had time tonight, I guarantee you could share with us smaller tests in your life where God sort of prepared you for the bigger test by seeing if you would trust. And by passing the smaller test, it prepared you for the cancer tests.
Right.
So tonight, maybe you don't have cancer. Maybe you say, well, I don't really relate to this. I don't have cancer. I don't have this going on. But maybe you're in a season or you're in a test tonight that in the grand scheme of life may not be equivalent to a cancer story or a story like we talked about the last month or two about loss. But you're in your own personal test. And if you don't learn to trust God with the little things, you'll never trust Him with the big things. And I guarantee you tonight you could tell us 1,000 stories about the little things you learned to trust God with before you ever got to the big things.
Well, I will say this. Before I had cancer the second time, we went through a difficult situation. My husband and I went through a difficult situation with trying to sell a home that we've been trying to sell for years. And we weren't getting nowhere. And there was a man of God that was praying for me and spoke to me. And I don't believe he knew about the house. He spoke to me and said, your faith is what's going to sell this house. And I said to myself, naturally speaking, well, we'll never sell it. Because I'm married to a man that has very strong faith. I was leaning on his faith. So the day he told me, this is your faith for us to sell this house, I had to kick it in gear. That how much do I trust God? How much do I lean on God? And it was just a few months later that we sold that house. It had been on the market for years that we couldn't move. And after that, the Lord spoke to me one morning. He said, I've just taken you on a journey of faith. And there are two bridges in our area. One's shorter than the other, but one of them is very long. And he used that for me as an illustration. He said, I took you across the small bridge, but you're fixing to face something in life that you're going to go across the long one. And when he said the long one, I was a little rattled because that's a long bridge. But
very high, very scary.
Very high and very scary. A lot of people won't even drive over that bridge. They have to get an escort. And that's what the Lord spoke to me with. And I had no idea that it would be cancer, but the Lord gave me that. And that's when I made sure that I was going to trust him and walk with him through that journey.
I think for someone tonight watching, if you would hear what Alice is saying and what God's saying to you is that whatever you're going through, God's put within you the grace and the faith. If you would just learn to trust in that and reach to that and lean on Jesus, it's there. And maybe God's preparing you. And maybe you're on that small bridge of faith tonight. But learn to cross that small bridge, because if you can cross that small bridge, God's got a big bridge in front of you that you're going to face. And so you got number one, and then 5 years later, number two, and you're thinking, okay, all right, 2 tests passed. I'm moving on. This is over with. No more of this nonsense. God's good. Yes, I crossed the little bridge. I crossed the big bridge. There ain't no more bridges in this area. So I know we're good to go. And then the big one hit. How many years after the second one? 10 years. So a little 5-year and then 10-year. So you got over the little bridge. You got over the big bridge. But you didn't know that the big bridge was preparing you for the ocean that you were about to go over.
Right. Very
and
well.
So 10 years later, how did that happen?
For some reason, the Lord did not speak to me that I was about to fall in the ocean. So there were a couple of situations that I didn't feel comfortable with. And my husband said to me one morning, I want you to make an appointment. I said, I'll get around to it. He said, no, you're going to make the appointment. I said, okay. I called my doctor. She said, I have an opening in the morning. Would you like it? I said, yes, I don't have a choice. I need to be checked. I went in. Within probably 15 minutes after being in the doctor's office, I was rushed immediately to the breast center. And probably within an hour, I could tell by their faces and by what they were looking at that there was something very seriously wrong.
Okay, so let's stop just for a second. Let's ratchet this up. First one didn't sink in. Second one sort of sinking in. Fear's knocking at your door. 10 years later, everything's ratcheted up. What was that emotion like? 15 minutes in the doctor's office, they're wheeling you over to the breast center. You're seeing their faces. What was that emotion like? The
emotion was disappointment and fear combined. Okay. I wasn't disappointed in God. I just, or maybe, I don't know, maybe a little bit of shock, because they had said after my second bout with cancer, it was all gone, no problems whatsoever. And then I'm being told that it's this problem again in the same area. And it was shocking. I did feel some fear and disappointment. But when I saw the doctor's face or the radiologist's face, I knew there was some rustling around in the room that was unnecessary, and then told that I would immediately have to come back in for 3 more tests. I obviously knew there was something wrong. And when we left the clinic, when we left the breast center rather, and we went out and got in the car, the first thing that we did was pray. We joined hands together and asked the Lord to prepare us for this. Whatever it was, we were willing to walk through it. I was willing to walk through it. I needed His strength, His guidance, And I rebuked fear in my life. And I said, Jesus, I'm not really disappointed. I know it felt that way, but I'm not. And I need you to help me. I had no idea in that prayer meeting that morning what I was facing for the next 9 months of my life.
And let's talk about that. The first one, obviously, it was quick and easy. Second one, you got through the surgery, radiation. What was that 9-month journey? This time was a little more challenging.
Very challenging. When we went back in a couple of days later, had the test, and they found out that there was a very serious lump, and they were going to have to do something quickly. That weekend, we had a special speaker at Antioch, and that special speaker happened to have a ministry in healing. Not that he can heal people, but God uses him because he has such great faith. Because he was here, my faith went sky high.
Here we go. Perfect timing. It's going to happen again.
Family did not know. We decided to wait until after it was near a holiday. We wanted to wait after holiday to share it with our family. So this preacher was here, and my faith was sky high. And he asked everybody to come down afterwards that had a physical problem. I walked down there. Nobody knew why I was down there. And he walks over to me and he says, I pray for every cancer cell in her body.
Oh, here it goes again. Here it goes.
So,
all right.
I was on cloud 9.
Yes.
And went home and thought, I'm healed.
All
There's
right.
no problem.
When
I go in for the next test, there's nothing there. It's all over with. In fact, my mother did not know anything. She came up to me after the service and said, why would you get prayer? I said, well, I just got a few physical problems. And I thought, I'm not going to discuss it with you because I'm healed.
Yeah, why not? Let's talk faith.
So when I went to the doctor 2 days later, the surgeon said to me, you have to see an oncologist. Well, no one wants to hear the word oncologist in your life. That's serious. So I went to the oncologist, and she decided that it was so large that they could not do chemo, that they could not do the surgery. And she says to me, you will be starting chemo the first part of January. That was in November. She said, you will be starting chemo in January. That was shocking news to me.
That's like a gut punch to the faith, right? So you go here, you thought, man, everything's lining up. It's the same deal. God's just told me, same prayer that the first time, and it's over with. And then next thing you know, gut punch right to the, it's not there. And if I'm correct on this, and maybe you can allude to this later, but when she saw the size of the cancer and knew the extent of it, they weren't even sure. Later on, they told you this. They didn't tell you that at the time, right? But
No, before they started the chemo treatment, she said, we are not sure that we can shrink this tumor. That's how large it is. But we are going to try. But we're going to have to shrink it to be able to go in and even try to get it out.
And there was concern by that time it had spread outside of the breast.
Totally. And I will say, I forgot one thing that happened. The day that the radiologist called us with the news that we had to start acting very quickly on the process, I was sitting at the table when my husband got the message, and I could tell by the expression on his face that it was not good news. And so he told me, he said, you know, we don't have a choice. They have found a very large tumor. And I sat at the table, and I felt alone. I felt, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to turn. And I got up from the table, and I went to my piano because I've always been involved in music. I went to my piano, and the Lord gave me a song, not a song to write, but an old song. And the song told me, before I went to chemo and before I knew about the surgery and everything, exactly what I was going to go through. Because the title of the song is, That's Just His Way of Telling Me He Loves Me. And one verse quickly says, He lets me walk down roads of disappointments. He watches and He knows what's best for me. My greatest strength comes through my darkest trials. And my greatest joy is knowing that He can trust in me. And the last verse says that He was going to, I can't remember all of it right now, but He's going to bring me through it. And I got a hold of that word through. And I held on to that word. And every time I would feel fear or people would try to project fear on me that I may not make it, I would remember that he said I was going to get through this. He didn't say how easy it was going to be. He didn't say it wouldn't be disappointing. He didn't say there wouldn't be pain. But he said, you will come through.
Like David said, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. I'm not going to stay here, but I'm going to have to go through it, but I'm going through that. And you had that 9-month journey. You kind of hold that. But you said something here just a moment ago, and I think that was powerful because I think when you said that, there's a lot of people that could identify with that. You have a wonderful husband. Dad, if you're watching, I'm trying to give you some credit here. If you have a wonderful husband, you're surrounded by family, friends, very supportive environment that you are with, that you have been the pastor of a very large church. You have tremendous amount of people that love you all around the world. But in that moment, sitting there at that table, even though you have all that around, it was a lonely moment.
It was a very lonely moment. It was a very, I didn't feel like God had left me, but I don't know that I've ever felt more alone. And my husband was standing right by me. And again, yes, my husband was very supportive and all of my family was wonderful. And certainly Antioch supported me during that time. But I felt all alone. That's why I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. And I got up and I may have limped to the piano. I don't think I ran to the piano. And I sat down, and that's a very old song. It's not a song we sing anymore that I had on my mind. And I just started playing the keys on the piano, and that's the song that came up. And the second verse, I just remembered, it says, if I'm successful walking through this dark valley, He'll give me strength to climb the highest hill. The more I'm tried, the better He can mold me. Change my life completely to fit His perfect will. And the most important thing in my life is the will of God and yielding to Him. You can't always do that by yourself. You need Him to help you. But I held on to that song. That was my promise throughout the journey. And, you know, when you go in for your first chemo treatment and they put on those suits and you see that stuff.
Yeah, what's that like?
It's horrible. You see that stuff they're putting in your veins. My husband says to the nurse, why are you putting all that on? She says, because if it gets on our skin, it will burn us. And he said, you're putting that in my wife? Well, naturally speaking, I wanted to say, not necessary, I'm leaving. I'm just going to be naturally speaking. But I just felt I had peace. That's what people don't understand with my journey with chemo. I had peace throughout of it. I did not have fear of it damaging my body. I did not have fear of being sick.
Because go back to the second one, you were trusting in God. Even though you were listening to the doctors, you were doing what the medication. I
totally trust in God.
Even though that, you were saying, okay, God, I'm trusting in you, and if chemo's what you want to put in me, I'm going to trust that chemo's going to do the work. And I think so many times, so many people, we separate the two. We got trust in God, and then we got the medical field, and we don't realize the skills and the wisdom and all the things that the medical field has, it comes from God. Even though they might not even be believers, we as believers know that the connection comes from God. And that's every time you walk in there and see that. I heard a story, it's very similar to what you just said, where a man was going through cancer treatment, and they came in with the suits, and they came in with all the stuff, and he's like, kind of like you were, how come you guys have to dress like that? You're about to put that in my body. What's up with that? And the nurse said such a powerful statement. She said, if it gets on us, it will burn our skin. It will do damage to us. He said, well, how can it do damage to your skin and be okay inside of me? And she made this statement, which is so powerful. She said, sir, the blood can handle what the flesh can't.
Wow.
And I think tonight what you have to understand is our flesh, our human man, can't handle some of this stuff. If it touches us, if it hits us, if fear hits us, if the trials of life hits us, we can't handle it. But thank God tonight for the blood of Jesus.
I'm covered by His blood.
Because the blood can handle what the flesh can't. And if you're looking to your own flesh, you're not going to be able to walk a faith journey. You're not going to be able to make it through. Even though you may not be facing chemo tonight. You may be facing something else in your life tonight that to you is your own faith journey. But if you're trusting in your own flesh or somebody else's flesh, the blood can handle what the flesh can't. Why don't you reach out to the cross? The blood of Calvary that still flows can give you what you need, and the blood can handle what the flesh can't.
I didn't know that, what you've just told me. But I will say this, and I wish I'd have said it before now, but I will say this. When you drive up in the parking garage of the chemo clinic, or the breast center, or whatever it's called, the chemo unit at Anne Arundel Hospital, when you drive up in there and you walk in that door, if you have not prayed, there is a strong spirit of fear. There are people that are in that clinic that you will never see again the next time you go back because they don't make it. So there's a strong spirit of fear and depression. And before I would ever walk in that clinic, even when I went through the radiation journey, I never walked in there without praying before I entered the door. And I just got this, okay, and I'm going to write this down in my journal. I always said, and I am covered by your blood.
Cover me in your blood.
I am covered by your blood. Before I walked in there. Because I do know what effects it can have on you. But I also know that I have a God that's bigger and greater than all of that.
See that?
And I said, I'm covered by your blood.
This to me is showing the difference between someone who has a relationship with Jesus and those of us, not to be a negative thing, but those of us who are just simply believers. Because someone who has a relationship, we don't separate our life from God. He is our life. And
right.
Most of us probably wouldn't even think, you know what, before I walk in here, I want to be covered. I want to walk in here with Jesus. It's sort of like, well, you know, this is life and this is what I have to go through. But because you know Him, you're walking with Him and you're holding, as the old song used to say, holding to His hand. Every time you walked in there, cover me. Cover me. And never got to a moment where you relied on Alice Wright or Chester Wright or anybody else or even the great doctors that were doing tremendous at guiding you in your treatment. It was always first and foremost leaning and trusting in Jesus.
Right.
And as you watched yourself, and I remember this, I'll never forget this. I watched through that chemo deal. You dealt with the side effects. You watched, you know, your hair started to fall out, and you dealt with all of that, and you're dealing with that. How do you face that? Looking at, it's, you know, you said it was a, you know, peace and all that, but it wasn't like it was, you weren't dealing with things along the journey, and you're watching your hair fall out, and you are seeing all this stuff that's happening to you. When you looked at yourself in the mirror, and you saw what was happening to your body, your physical body, what was that like, and how did you face that when you're looking? You know, so many times the Bible says faith is not what we see, faith is the evidence of what we don't see. And so you're having to look at one thing in the mirror as your hair falls out and you're looking at your body fight this fight, and it would be so easy just to give into what you see. How did you balance what you see with what you believed? Or was it easy? Or I can't believe it could not have been easy.
No, it was not easy. Probably the most difficult part of the chemo, because I was blessed not to have major side effects, probably the most devastating part of the chemo was when I lost my hair. My hair has always been very, very precious to me. And so when my hair started falling out, that was very difficult. I tried to bargain with God on my hair, little sidelight here. I tried to bargain with God, and I said, God, you know, you can leave it. It's okay if you leave my hair, because my oncologist told me that after I got through the chemo and after about 6 weeks, it would start coming back. Well, that was only a process of 5 months. And I said to God, I said, wow, 5 months is not that long. So you can just leave my hair. So when it started falling out, I'm like, well, I don't think we made that bargain. So I'm going to have to trust Him. It was extremely difficult when it changed my appearance. I felt like for the period of time that I didn't have my hair and had to use other hair I could just see a difference in myself. And when I would look at that, and the devil or my flesh, either one would say to me, you look weird, you look strange, people are going to make fun of you, little kids are going to laugh at you. I would say, Jesus, I need you because you chose. And I wasn't saying that accusing him, but I said, you chose for me to walk this journey with my hair, with me losing my hair. So today, I need your strength.
Wow. Every day.
To get through this. Because this is not easy.
You keep saying...
I was honest with God.
You're saying two words here over and over again I think we need to put together. We're talking about faith, obviously, but you've said probably 10 times at least the word trust. Faith is great, but there's a huge part of faith, but there's another huge part of trust, and that's where that relationship comes in. And if they don't work together, you can't walk this journey. Because if you're just relying on faith, you'll have days where you're sky high, and there's days where you're going to just sink to the bottom. But it's that trust that holds your faith up when your faith is being tested. Well, somebody needs to hear me. I really feel that strongly. Trust will hold your faith up when your faith is being pressed by what you see, being pressed down by the circumstances, by the side effects. It's that trust that says, okay, faith, I got your back today. Let's hold together. And that trust only comes because, I heard someone say the difference between faith and trust is very simply this. Faith is believing in what God can do, but trust is believing in who God is. You know what?
I agree with that.
And if you don't know who he is, you can't trust him. So, obviously got through that. I remember being in the hospital, 13-hour surgery, and today, thank God, we can say that cancer-free. And you still are facing the journey. You have to go in and get tested, and it's by no means an easy world, but God has walked you through that. I want to circle back around to two things here before we end. And that's something you said earlier, listening to other people. And even worse than that in the world we live in, and this wouldn't have been an issue maybe 20, 25 years ago, you got people in the internet. And both of those, to me, can be faith destroyers. What did you face with that? I know you mentioned a little bit. What was people's reaction coming up to you, and how did that affect you, or you navigate through that?
I had to be kind. I tried to be kind with my words, but when people would start to tell me about their grandmother dying and their aunt dying, and what they went through, and et cetera, I would say to them, this is just not a good time for you to be sharing stories like that with me. I am believing God's going to bring me through this. So it would be better if maybe later in life you shared that, but not now. I would not let them share those stories. I did not go on the internet for any information because that just opens a door. One very important point is when all this happened, you don't know who to choose as a surgeon. You don't know who to choose as an oncologist. Maybe your medical doctor might be easy, but that's a difficult thing when you're talking about someone that's going to operate on you for 13 hours. You're going to have an oncologist that's going to direct your footsteps naturally for a while. But my husband and I prayed about that, as strange as that sounds, and felt like God led us to the people we wanted to lead us to. That doesn't mean they were the best in the area or knew him more than others, but we decided that's who we were, other than God, certainly, but we were going to listen to them and not others.
You didn't go and do a Google review or
no.
Doctors R Us and see which is the best one out there.
No.
Jesus is the best reviewer.
Exactly.
And you made a statement there. They may not have been the best in their field.
They may not be.
But that's who God said.
He directed us to them, and we had peace. We had peace. Wow. And I listened to them and did what they told me to do. And everybody has a solution how you can cure the cancer on your own. They tried to send me to the Mayo Clinic. They tried to send me to different states that I could go and stay for 6 months and be cancer-free. I couldn't listen to all that. I couldn't listen to all that because the Lord spoke to me the morning when he started me on the journey.
How different do you think it would have been maybe let's just say the outcome was the same. Let's just say all of it, you're just sitting here today and you're cancer-free, you've been through 3-time cancer survivor. But what would the difference have been if you would have just simply not listened, not necessarily taken their advice, but just let all that stuff, listen to people, talk to you? How difficult do you think it would have been versus doing what you said very kindly? Listen, it'd be best if we talked about this later. What if you wouldn't have said that and you would have just listened to all that negative? What do you think would have been the difference in the journey?
It would have had a lot more bumps in it, number one. But number two, I don't think I could have made it through the journey.
So you're saying you wouldn't even be here if you'd have listened to all that.
That's, in all honesty, I didn't know if that was okay to say that.
No, it's fine.
But I do not believe that I would be here today if I had given into fear and listened to what people said instead of trusting in God and holding to His hand and holding on to what He gave me. I do not believe that I would be sitting here today talking to you.
We talked about this a little bit last month, and the month before we were talking to several people that had been through loss and dealt with losing family members. And they talked about some things that people said to them that were sort of just head scratchers. Why would you say that? Were there things that people did say to you or did for you or with you that were positives? Were there things that were along that journey? Were there people or things that people did that were help and not a negative? Obviously, people, I'm going to tell you, I went through this, it was horrible, and you can do it. Obviously, you don't want to hear that, but were there other things that people did and said that were uplifting to your soul and helped your faith? What were those things?
Yes, there were many people that, we received emails, we received messages from people that were praying for me all over the world. I didn't know I had so many people praying for me. I told God one day, I said, there's no way I can't get through this. There's too much prayer going up. Because, when you're getting messages from all countries around you, of course, my husband travels a lot preaching, that was amazing to me. I received many encouraging emails. There were people around me that were very supportive. There was a dear friend of mine that was constantly sending me very positive things in an email periodically that was very encouraging. My family certainly was very encouraging to me. That's very important. And that's what I surrounded myself with.
You choose to surround yourself with the positive, faith-building influences and not the negative. And it's your choice. What voices you're going to listen to.
Exactly.
You're going to surround yourself with the negative, with the doubt, with the unbelief, with even the humanistic approaches of this world, or are you going to surround yourself with faith? And let me ask this, because it sounds, you're going through this, and I come up to you from someone, or my perspective, to say, Alice, I just want to let you know, I love you and I'm praying for you. I'm like in my brain going, well, that's just sort of that's a terrible thing to say. It's not profound. If I said that to you, does it have an effect?
Yes.
It sounds very small and very...
Not during a time like that.
But if I say to you, Alice, I want to let you know I love you and I'm praying for you and you're on my mind, I'm thinking in my mind, geez, you probably had 1,000 people tell you that. What am I going to do? But does it make an effect?
But you need the 1,000 people during times like that. You need them.
There's never too much.
There's never too much of that. Never too much. I could have heard that 100 times a day and it wouldn't have been too much during that time.
So even the smallest things that we feel like were insignificant to you, everything was just another thing to hold on to. Let's finish with this. Obviously, there are those that may be watching, maybe not going through a cancer journey, but maybe going through their own journey. And maybe I believe that there may be some of you that are watching this at a later date, that someone told you about this and you're watching this, and maybe you just got news of something, and maybe you're about to face your journey. And I know since then, many people have reached out to you. There have been many ladies that have reached out to you that have gotten the diagnosis of breast cancer, other different types of cancer, and have reached out to you. What are the pieces of advice you would give to someone that's watching, or you give to people that are about to face sort of that mountain you discussed earlier? They're about to face that long, high, scary bridge. What do you say to them?
I am sharing with a friend right now that's going through cancer, different kind of cancer, but going through cancer. And she's having a very difficult time. And I try to encourage her as much as I can that this is real. This is real, okay? You can't live in a cloud of faith and just close off to the fact that this is not a real journey. It is a real journey. But I just encourage her that on the days when she's discouraged, it's okay to be discouraged. Don't give in to that. On the days when she goes in and the doctor says to her, it's just not looking good right now, I said, I understand that, and that's not an easy thing for you to hear, but don't give into it. It's not over till it's over. God can perform a miracle at the last minute. Okay, so that's the best thing I can say to a person when they're traveling this journey.
And if someone says to you, I'm really battling with fear, and I'm just overwhelmed by fear, what would you say to that? If I said to you, Alice, you're special. You have all this going on for you, and your husband's a preacher, and you're a pastor's wife. You've done all this great stuff, but I'm not anybody special. I'm nobody, and I just can't seem to get past the fear. What would you say to that statement?
First of all, the first thing I would say to them would be, can we pray? Can I pray with you? And I would bind that spirit of fear that was attacking them and ask God to give them strength to overcome that. And that's a very good point you just made. I did have that statement made to me frequently. Well, you're special. God's brought you through. God's going to take care of you because you're special. I'm not special. God's no respecter of persons. Mm-hmm. He loves me just as much as he loves the next person and the next person and the next person. If I would have been special to God, I would have never walked that journey.
Ooh, that's a good one. I like that.
Exactly. I've given myself to God since I was just a child. And I even had people say that to me, well, look what God let you go through. Look what a testimony I have now of how good God is and what he can do. But people will say that, you're special and whatever. I'm not. So that's why I try to say, we're human beings. People forget they're not little gods. They're human beings. You're going to have these feelings. You just can't afford to give in to them. And it's just like fighting the good fight of faith. You got to fight through these feelings. I had to fight through these feelings frequently.
Is there a time, let's just say this real quick before we end. Are there still days maybe that if you let your, I don't want to use the word, but I can't think of a better way of putting it, if you let your guard down, do you think even now
totally.
It would just, you've been through it 3 times, you're cancer free, yay. But if you just let your guard down, that voice would say, well, it was 3 times, but don't forget, there's going to be a 4th and you may not make it.
Yeah.
Would that still?
Of course.
Do you still have that knocking on your door even now?
Of course. And the biggest thing is, I think once cancer enters your life, I think cancer and fear are just, they're identical twins. Yeah. They're twins. They're identical twins. So when cancer enters into your life, it has an effect on you. And especially when you go for any physical, anything.
Because you still go for cancer screenings now, don't you?
If you go for any type medical, anything, they know you're a cancer. That
you have to put that on every form.
Exactly. So you're treated different. You're totally treated different. Okay, so that's already a cloud on your life. And then you have these sweet people that say, well, the cancer cells that were left in your body will show up somewhere else. You may never die of breast cancer, but you may die of colon cancer. You may die of this kind of cancer and that. I'm surrounded with people like that. I hear that. I still hear that. And so that's why I cannot give it. Yes, I am.
Still today, yes, you're still fighting the same fight.
Still today.
It's not over just because the doctor said, Alice, you're cancer free. No. The fight continues every day.
The fight continues. The fight continues every day.
So even if you make it through where you're going through, you can't stop fighting. None of us can stop fighting until we leave, until God takes us off this earth. Every day, as she alluded to, Paul made the statement, we fight the good fight of faith. Too many of us just think, well, I made it through that. Let's just take a sabbatical, take a relaxing. I'm past it. And that's when that fear, that doubt, and the adversary sweeps in and says, aha, now I got you.
Right.
Even today, you're fighting that faith.
Right.
Thank you. We made it through. Thank you for doing this. And I know you said so many wonderful things tonight. I know that there were many that were touched and are going to be touched by you being willing to come on here and share your story. I know it's not always easy to share sort of the dark, deep recesses of your story, but thank you for being vulnerable tonight and joining us. Really appreciate it. God bless you. Thank you for joining us tonight. I pray in Jesus' name that you are blessed by what was said, that something in this journey that Alice shared with us tonight, that God, it wasn't just the words of Alice, it wasn't just the words of Joel, but it was God speaking to your life. And that when you turn this broadcast off, you're going to have a fresh, renewed determination to keep fighting. Don't give in to the fear. Fear's knocking at your door tonight. In Jesus' name, I rebuke that fear. And I'm saying to you, grab a hold of the faith. And more importantly, grab a hold of people that have faith around you. Don't surround yourself with people with doubt. Don't surround yourself with the naysayers. Don't surround yourself with the negative talks or the thoughts of this world or blogs or Instagram or Facebook. Get a hold of people that walk faith. Get a hold of them and say, you know what? I need you now, and let's walk this journey together. And as you go through this journey, I'm telling you, God will never leave you. He'll be right there with you. And right now, even as you're watching this, if you would just close your eyes and just say a very simple prayer, Jesus, I need you. I need you. I need you. I know His Word tells us, and I've experienced this. Alice experienced it. If you would just say that, God would just sweep in right where you are. You'd feel the love and the peace of Jesus Christ. Thank you. I'm asking you, if you were touched by this tonight, share it with somebody. Every one of us knows somebody that's being touched by some kind of journey of faith. It may not be cancer. It may be something else. Share this with them, because I believe they can be touched and ministered to as well. God bless you. I pray in Jesus' name that the Word of God that was spoken tonight would have fruit in your life. God bless you. Please come back and be with us again September. We got another great guest lined up for September. You're going to want to be a part of it. You're going to want to see it. God bless you. Have a wonderful evening.